The air inside the throne chamber shimmered in soft crystalline hues, pulsing like breath. In the heart of the Altherian Empire's flagship, a floating palace of glass and energy suspended in orbit over a dying star, Empress Zaya stood motionless. Draped in a semi-living garment of shifting silk light, her tall, golden figure radiated the essence of engineered perfection. Every Zarthini in attendance, from the lowliest advisor to the highest military commander, stood still, holding breath as the chamber doors hissed open. The human delegation had arrived. To most Zarthini, humans were still half-myth, primitive, chaotic, crude. Records spoke of their world, Solterra, with a mix of disdain and curiosity. And yet, despite their lack of elegance or enhancement, here stood their ambassador, a battle-worn man whose very existence seemed to defy everything the Empire believed. He stepped forward with the slow gait of someone who'd walked through war zones more than palaces. His name, spoken softly among his kind, was Captain Ryan Thorne. His uniform bore the scars of countless missions, seared edges, hand-stitched repairs, and medals pinned on fabric stained by old blood. But it was the mark on his face that silenced the room more effectively than any royal decree. A deep scar, jagged and unashamed, slashed across his left cheek, beginning just below his eye, ending near his jaw. Unlike the smooth, symmetrical beauty of the Zarthini, this mark did not hide. It proclaimed. Zaya's eyes locked onto it. The effect was instant. Something ancient stirred in her. A flicker of instinct, of memory, a legend of warriors marked by fate. The Empress, who had trained herself never to flinch, stepped back ever so slightly. The amulet of Vyra around her neck pulsed in resonance. Its ancient core responded not to technology or command, but to destiny. "This cannot be real," she whispered. Her words, unintentionally loud in the crystalline acoustics, bounced across the chamber like a hymn. Eyes turned toward her. Advisors froze. The Empress, uncertain. Impossible. And yet, something in her voice made every soul present consider the impossible. Captain Thorne's response was disarming. With a half-smile that cracked his scar wider, he touched his cheek and said, "If you think this is bad, you should see the rest of me." A ripple of laughter, light, melodic, escaped the Empress's court. Some chuckled, others gasped at their own reaction. Even Zaya found her lips twitching. Humor. From a human. In the royal chamber. And still, her mind raced. The scar matched stories from her ascension training. Stories of the wounded one, a being whose imperfection symbolized unbreakable will. Such a tale was not meant to be literal. Yet here he was. Her fingers touched the amulet again. Could humans have fabricated the scar with such precision? Was this some elaborate diplomatic ruse? Or had the cosmos woven this man into her path with purpose? She studied his form more closely. Crooked nose. Uneven shoulder. Knuckles swollen from too many fights. He wasn't beautiful, he was real. Her people had spent generations perfecting appearance, behavior, posture. Thorne had perfected survival. As questions rippled across the throne room, Thorne stood unbothered. He responded plainly to the court's inquiries, sometimes pausing to give an honest, almost painfully simple answer. Sometimes joking. Never bluffing. When asked by a Zarthini general how many victories he had commanded, he shrugged. Enough to still be breathing. That answer, humble, even blunt, landed harder than any data report. It sparked something in the room. Intrigue. Curiosity. Respect. Then came the demonstration. Upon request, half challenge, half insult, Thorne removed his jacket and displayed the crisscross of scars across his torso. Each mark came with a story. An ambush on Titan's moons. A failed rescue above the gas storms of Phalix 9. A broken rib that didn't heal right because he wouldn't leave the battlefield. Zarthini warriors watched in silent horror, fascination, and, finally, admiration. Then he moved. A blur of motion. Raw, powerful, intentionally ungraceful. Zarthini fighting styles were elegant, fluid, ritualistic. Thorn's movements were practical and explosive. A punch. A roll. A takedown that ended with a priceless vase spiraling through the air. He caught it with one hand. The court burst into psalm-like laughter. The Empress laughed aloud. That was the moment everything changed. From icy diplomacy to strange connection. From formality to genuine interest. The divide between their species, once measured in centuries of evolution and ideology, narrowed in a heartbeat. And as the Empress leaned forward to speak with Thorn face to face, her tone softened. "You're not what I expected," she admitted. He nodded once. "Neither are you." The crystalline balcony outside the throne chamber offered a breathtaking view of Zarthus Prime. Below, the glowing forests pulsed with bioluminescent energy, flowing like rivers of color across the surface of the planet. Stars shimmered above like attentive gods. Yet despite the splendor, a quiet tension lingered in the air between Empress Zaya and Captain Ryan Thorn. The two stood side by side, not speaking at first. Thorn, ever direct, finally broke the silence. "Is this where you tell me I've insulted your entire civilization by being ugly?" Zaya smirked. "On the contrary. Your presence has forced them to ask questions they've never dared to consider. That is a gift." He glanced sideways. "Some gift. I'm usually only invited to planets when there's something to blow up." She laughed again, more gently this time, and gestured toward the stars. "Perhaps today, you've given us something more dangerous than war." "Doubt." Before he could reply, alarms blared. The balcony trembled slightly beneath them. Lights along the outer hull shifted from warm gold to emergency crimson. Guards sprinted into formation, weapons unfolding from elegant sheaths of crystal and light. From the distant sky, sleek black ships appeared, no known markings, no registration. They pulsed with erratic gravity distortions, bending the air around them like heat waves. "Unknown vessels breaching orbit," a voice said through Zaya's neural comm. Thorn didn't hesitate. He grabbed his comm, barking commands in sharp military bursts. "All Solterra personnel to defense grid. Activate perimeter shields. This isn't a drill." The Zarthini moved swiftly, but their elegance showed cracks under pressure. Precision faltered. Composure wavered. This wasn't a formal duel or diplomatic maneuver, it was chaos. And chaos was Thorn's home turf. Within minutes, the enemy ships broke the outer defenses, deploying squads of dark-armored warriors across the palace. The intruders didn't match any known fleet. Their armor shimmered with erratic static, and they moved like shadows given form. Every step they took drained color from the world around them. "The Void-born," Thorn muttered. "We thought they were wiped out." Zaya's expression hardened. "Legends. Nightmares told to Zarthini children. I never believed they were real." "They're real," he said grimly, "and they don't come for peace." Together, they ran. In the central war room, holograms flickered with disrupted data. Human and Zarthini systems struggled to interface, their codebases alien to each other. A language barrier that, until now, had only been a mild inconvenience. Now, it was a battlefield liability. "We need a shared platform," Thorn said. Zaya gestured to her amulet. "This can bridge data streams. But it requires mutual trust." "Then trust me." She did. Moments later, their systems synchronized, an uneasy alliance of tech and instinct. Thorn took command of a mixed squad of human marines and Zarthini sentinels. His commands were blunt, fast, effective. "Fall back, bottleneck them in the spire corridor. Zarthini units on overwatch. Humans up front, we soak, they strike. Move." The hybrid strategy worked. The invaders, built for stealth and precision, weren't prepared for brute force followed by laser-sharp counterstrikes. Thorn's tactics used the elegance of Zarthini reflexes as scalpels, while human bodies were the shields and sledgehammers. Even Xayah joined the defense, unleashing focused blasts of energy through her amulet, incinerating entire squads of Voidborn with blinding light. Nice, Thorn grunted as he shot through another one's armor at close range. She flicked her hair aside. Did you expect anything less? Honestly? Yeah. Then, something unexpected, humor amidst destruction. One of Thorn's sergeants accidentally activated a Zarthini music protocol while trying to detonate a breach charge. Hauntingly serene melodies filled the corridor as enemy troops froze in confusion. Wrong button, Sarge, someone shouted. Maybe they'll surrender to cultural exchange, came the reply. Laughter followed, exhausted, terrified laughter. But it was real. Even some Zarthini chuckled, the sound helping them endure. And that's when it hit Xayah. This was more than a battlefield, it was a crucible. She watched her people adapting, loosening, growing stronger not by doubling down on perfection, but by letting it go. The fight led them to the energy core of the palace. The Voidborn wanted something. Thorn guessed it first. They're not just attacking. They're after the artifact. Whatever powers your amulet, there's more of it, isn't there? Xayah hesitated. There are relics. Hidden deep beneath our forests. Sealed. Believed to be too dangerous to access. But if the Voidborn are seeking them, we need to stop them. Fast. A massive explosion rocked the chamber, nearly toppling the core. Fire and light spilled into the command bridge. A Voidborn commander entered, massive, distorted, fused to his own armor. He roared something in a guttural, broken dialect. Thorn raised his rifle. Round 2, he said. Side by side, the Empress and the scarred soldier faced the darkness, two worlds fighting not just for survival, but for something neither had ever truly known. Trust. Smoke curled from the shattered ceiling as the palace's once pristine halls filled with the echoes of battle. Debris littered the floor like fallen glass stars, and wounded soldiers, both human and Zarthini, were being carried or limped toward makeshift medbays fashioned from broken furniture and glowing shield panels. Captain Ryan Thorn stood at the edge of it all, his eyes scanning constantly. His uniform was torn and bloodied, plasma burns seared across one sleeve, and fresh dust darkened the crease of his old scars. He looked exactly like the kind of man who could survive this mess. And he had. Again. Zarthini elite troops, usually pristine and poised, now wore grime like war paint. One of them, a young warrior named Leary, moved toward Thorn with a grateful nod. He had thrown her out of the path of a collapsing arch moments earlier, taking a sharp hit to the shoulder in the process. She saw it, saw the way his jaw clenched when he rolled his arm. But he said nothing. Just kept leading. Empress Xayah appeared at his side, cloaked now in reinforced armor that shimmered gold and ivory. Her face remained regal, but her expression was no longer untouched by fear. She had seen her empire bend dangerously close to breaking. And she had seen who held it together. "You're bleeding again," she said softly, eyes on his shoulder. "Adds character," Thorn muttered, adjusting his weapon. "I've got plenty to spare." She gave a weary smile and stepped in front of him, placing her palm gently over the worst of the wound. A wave of warmth spread through his muscles, and the pain faded enough to stop his teeth from grinding. "I've studied anatomy," she said. "But it's very different up close." Thorn raised a brow. "You mean sweaty and disappointing?" "I mean real," she replied, meeting his gaze. "Flawed. Imperfect. But, alive." That word carried weight. Alive. Before he could respond, one of his lieutenants ran up. "Captain, we've intercepted a transmission. Someone's breached the palace archive." Thorn's expression darkened. The archive houses your artifact maps, doesn't it? Zaya nodded. And our oldest war records. If they've accessed them, they'll know the relics aren't just myth. They'll know where to look. He holstered his rifle and turned to her. Then we've got to beat them there. The palace became a command center overnight. Plans were drawn, maps studied, terrain scans enhanced. The artifact site, deep within the crystalline forest, was surrounded by unstable gravity wells and native predators, a natural fortress. Perfect for hiding power. Horrible for reaching it. The Empress watched her people panic, falter, question. Then she watched Thorn. No theatrics. No grand speeches. He walked the rooms, checked equipment, listened to every soldier like they were equals. Even the Zarthini elite responded to him now, drawn by the weight of earned leadership rather than enforced obedience. At one point, she caught him showing a group of her guards a basic human combat tactic using hand gestures and a broken chair leg. They leaned in, fascinated, even as they pretended to correct his form. They laughed when he said, "It's not pretty, but it works." Leary, standing nearby, turned to Zaya and said quietly, "He fights like he breathes. Ugly. But unstoppable." As preparations advanced, Thorn pulled the Empress aside. "There's something else," he said, voice low. "I got word from Earth's Intel Division." Her eyes narrowed. "Your own people." He nodded grimly. "Director Naira Voss. She's been tracking the Voidborn for years. She just revealed this entire attack was a diversion." Zaya frowned. "A diversion from what?" "A deeper target. The real artifact chamber, hidden beneath your forests. Earth knew about it. They never told me." Betrayal sliced through the Empress like ice. "They used you." Thorn didn't argue. She looked away, furious. "And yet you're still here. Still helping us." He stepped closer. "Because this alliance matters more than who lied. Because what we're building here is bigger than either of our governments." She studied his scar, the one that had so shaken her court only days ago. Now, it felt like a badge of truth. He wasn't perfect. That's why she believed him. The plan to reach the artifact site was madness: stealth teams masked by Zarthini cloaking tech, human decoys drawing fire, shifting terrain full of predators, and voidborn drones swarming the treetops. But they had no choice. Before deploying, Thorn called for one last meeting. "Everyone in this room is here because they've bled for someone else. Today, we do it again, not for orders, not for empires, but for what's right." No one spoke. They didn't need to. Moments later, they launched. The forests of Zarthus Prime weren't like anything on Earth. The trees were crystal spires, growing at impossible angles, singing quietly as gravity shifted. Thorn's boots crunched against diamond dust moss. He stayed low, checking motion trackers while Leary led the way with her superior vision. But halfway through their advance, chaos erupted. A section of the team was caught in a gravitational trap. One of the cloaked units malfunctioned. Enemy drones descended. And in the scramble to escape, Leary was taken. Thorn nearly broke formation chasing after her, only stopped when Zaya's voice came through the comms. "She's one of ours now. And we'll get her back." He stopped running. Because she was right. Because she was changing. The Empress who once demanded perfection had given him a reason to trust her, not because of her title, but because of her choice to change. They regrouped, battered and short on time. The next step would take them into the ruins, toward whatever secrets the Voidborn wanted. Toward the very thing that had drawn Thorn to this place in the first place. And beneath the glow of the forest, the scar on his cheek burned anew. Section 4. The ruins emerged from the forest like bones breaking through skin, towering, fractured remnants of a civilization even the Zarthini barely remembered. Covered in layers of translucent vine crystal, the structures pulsed faintly, as if dreaming. Captain Thorn led his strike team across the shattered stone pathways with caution. He moved like someone who'd seen ancient tech wake up angry before. Behind him, Empress Zaya kept pace, her steps light but sure. This was her world. These were her ancestors. But even she felt like an intruder here. Above them, the twin moons of Zarthus hovered low, casting intersecting shadows that danced in unnatural patterns across the overgrown plaza. Thorn paused at the outer wall of the chamber, the artifact's final resting place, then checked his scanner. No signs of Lyri, he muttered, frustration leaking through his usual calm. She's strong, Zaya said softly. He glanced at her. She shouldn't have to be. The plan was in motion. The decoy unit was drawing enemy fire to the south, and cloaked teams were slowly surrounding the structure. But Thorn's gut told him it wouldn't be enough. The Voidborn weren't alone. They never were. That suspicion solidified when a new group of ships descended silently into the valley. Sleek, efficient, unmistakably Terran. Earth's elite operatives. Voss, Thorn growled. The director of Earth intelligence emerged with a dozen heavily armed soldiers, stepping between the trees like shadows themselves. Her face was sharp and unreadable, her voice flat. You were never supposed to get this far. Zaya raised a weapon, her glow flaring. You were never supposed to be here at all. Voss raised a hand. Let's not pretend either of us is shocked. The artifact represents an energy signature 10 times stronger than anything we've studied. You really thought we'd let it sit here, unguarded, unused? Thorn stepped forward. You lied to me. You used me. I used your reputation. Your instincts. Your loyalty. She gave a cold smile. And it got us this far. His expression didn't change. Then I'm done helping you. She pointed her weapon, not at him, but at Zaya. Then you've chosen your side. Thorn moved between them instantly. I'm with anyone who protects this place from being weaponized. A flicker passed through Voss's eyes. Recognition, maybe even regret. So be it. Tension cracked like thunder. But before either side could fire, chaos hit from above. The Voidborn. Dozens of black-armored figures dropped into the ruins, firing as they descended. Earth troops scattered, caught off guard. Zarthini and humans alike dove for cover. The battlefield erupted into a frenzy of color, light, and shadows. In the mayhem, Thorn's instincts kicked in. He grabbed Zaya and pulled her behind a fallen column. We need to split them up. She nodded. I'll draw fire from the east. You go west, toward the artifact chamber. He hesitated for half a heartbeat, then nodded. Watch your 6, Empress. She almost smiled. Try not to get captured again. As they separated, Thorn's path took him deep into the ruins. He fired in bursts, ducking behind shattered murals and shattered statuary. 2 of Voss's soldiers flanked him, defectors, by the look in their eyes. They followed his lead without question. One was wounded within moments, but the other, a sharp-eyed woman named Reed, covered him with precise shots. We're with you now, sir, she said through grit teeth. He didn't have time to argue. The artifact chamber was within reach. But what he found inside stopped him cold. Marcus Cale. Once his squad mate. Once his friend. Now, the Voidborn commander. Cale stood at the chamber's heart, his body warped by dark tech, eyes glowing faint violet. He looked both more and less human, like someone who had been remade from hate. You came, Cale said. Thorn raised his weapon. Didn't expect you to be the one I'd have to kill. Cale smiled sadly. I waited for you on Iridian Prime. But you left me. You ordered me to. You said finish the mission. And you did. You made captain. I got forgotten. Thorn lowered his rifle slightly. You think becoming this thing makes it right? No. But it makes me strong. From behind, Xayah entered, glowing brighter than the chamber's etched walls. Strength without control is just destruction. Kale turned. You must be the Empress. Funny how you trust this man so much. Does he tell you what he gave up to earn those scars? I've seen what he's given, she said evenly. It's more than you ever will. That broke the dam. Kale roared and fired. Thorn moved fast, faster than his injuries should have allowed. He took the blast with his shield arm, rolled, and fired back. The two former brothers fought across the ancient stonework, sparks flying as plasma met stone and flesh. Meanwhile, Voss snuck through the shadows. She reached the artifact pedestal, pulling a containment device from her belt. The air hummed. Reality twisted slightly around her. But just as she activated it. Leery. Wounded, furious, alive. She tackled Voss, the two women colliding with the pedestal. A wave of light burst out, knocking them both unconscious. But it also destabilized the chamber. The artifact surged. Xayah screamed as the power lashed through the room, flaring with color and ancient symbols. She clutched her amulet. I can't hold it. Thorn rushed to her, sliding across cracked stone. You can. You've done it before. I'm not enough. He grabbed her hands. Then don't do it alone. They stood together, scarred soldier and golden empress, holding a power no one else could contain. Not with fear. But with trust. The chamber pulsed like a living heart. Light spilled from the central artifact, a swirling storm of color and energy too vast to comprehend. The ground cracked beneath it. Gravity bent around its core. And through it all, Empress Xayah and Captain Ryan Thorn stood firm, hands clasped over the amulet of Vyra, fighting not to control the relic, but to harmonize with it. The others could only watch. Marcus Kale, weakened but not unconscious, slumped against the wall, bloodied and silent. His armor hissed and sparked. The void-born forces had begun to fall back, their connection to the artifact severed, their coordination unraveling. Without its corruptible energy feeding them, they were nothing but tired men in broken shells. Xayah's eyes glowed with golden fire as she whispered something ancient, words passed down by empresses long before her reign. Beside her, Thorn gritted his teeth, pain shooting through every fiber of his body, but he didn't let go. The scar on his face burned, as though the artifact recognized him, recognized sacrifice. Then, everything shifted. The energy slowed. The chamber's violent hum faded to a soft resonance. The artifact hovered, then lowered itself gently into the platform, dormant once more. The wild light withdrew. Color returned to the forest visible beyond the ruined doorway. Silence followed. Heavy, absolute. Then. A deep breath. Xayah collapsed to one knee, her hand still clutching the amulet. Thorn caught her before she hit the stone. He knelt beside her, gently helping her upright as guards rushed into the chamber. You good? He asked softly. Her eyes opened slowly. I'm imperfect, she whispered. And alive. He chuckled. That's the best combination I know. Nearby, Leary limped to her feet and approached Voss, who remained unconscious beside her scrambled containment device. Leary looked to Xayah for instruction. Spare her, Xayah said, her voice quiet but resolute. Let her see what unity looks like. Kale stirred, pushing himself upright against the wall. The glow in his eyes was gone. Just a man now, a broken man. Thorn walked toward him, slow and steady. For a moment, it looked like he might say nothing. Then he extended a hand. You're not the only one who lost something back then. Kale stared at him, warred with himself, then took the hand. I don't deserve this, he said. None of us do, Thorn replied. That's why we keep trying. Outside, the surviving teams gathered amid the ruin-strewn clearing. Humans and Zarthini worked together, pulling debris from collapsed corridors, helping one another up, sharing rations, sharing laughter. The impossible had happened. Zaya and Thorn emerged from the ruins side by side. She still held the amulet. He still bore the blood-stained uniform. But something had shifted between them. Something the watching crowd could feel without words. Respect. Trust. Something more. Later, as repairs began and the stars began to pierce the darkening sky, the Empress stood before her people, not from the balcony, but from ground level. Among them. With Thorn beside her. She raised the amulet overhead. We chased perfection for centuries, she said. But perfection doesn't lead. It doesn't heal. It does not laugh, or bleed, or fight beside others. Today, we learn that the greatest strength lies in choosing to stand together. In our scars, our differences, our shared will to protect. Applause echoed like thunder. Human and Zarthini alike. A new alliance was born, not in treaties or signatures, but in sacrifice and survival. In the days that followed, a joint task force was established to monitor the artifact. Lyri was promoted to cultural liaison, becoming a symbol of adaptability and change. Voss, under supervision, offered intel in exchange for leniency. And Kale, under medical care and psychological watch, began the slow road to recovery. But it was Thorn who became the symbol. His scar, once viewed as a flaw, was now etched into Zarthini murals. Not polished. Not corrected. As it was. Zaya's message spread across systems, that imperfection was not weakness, but proof of the will to survive, to grow, to choose better paths. One evening, beneath the restored crystal domes of the capital, Thorn stood beside Zaya as they prepared to speak to a gathering of dozens of species. The ceremony would formalize their alliance. Zaya looked at him and said, "You ever think about retiring those scars, Captain?" He tapped his cheek. "Not a chance. They're my resume." She smiled. "Good. I plan to keep you around." And as the stars flared above them and the doors opened to a future none of them could have predicted, Captain Thorn said only, "Lead the way, Empress." They stepped forward together. Not perfect. But united. And that's how a scarred soldier and a golden empress changed the fate of an empire. This wasn't just a war story, it was a story of perspective. Of how the things we hide, the things we regret, the things that make us feel broken, can become the very reason we connect. That flaw on Thorn's face. It wasn't a weakness. It was a map. A story written in flesh and fire that helped him walk into the heart of a perfect society and remind them how to feel. It's easy to think that strength comes from polish, from symmetry, from getting everything right. But real strength? The kind that survives battles, earns loyalty, inspires peace, that kind is rough around the edges. It bleeds. It breaks. And it keeps going anyway. Captain Thorn didn't save the day because he was the best fighter or the smartest man in the room. He saved it because he never stopped showing up. Even when he was doubted. Even when he was betrayed. Even when the people he trusted let him down. That's what made the difference. And Empress Zaya. She didn't lose her power when she opened herself to change. She became something more. A leader who finally saw her people not as symbols of order, but as individuals who could grow, adapt, and thrive, even in the mess. That's the real takeaway. Unity doesn't mean perfection. It means choosing to fight for each other, especially when it's hard. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. We've got more incredible sci-fi journeys ahead, and trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next. Thanks for watching.